Sample proportion or population proportion? So I hear population a couple of times. I thought I heard a sample out there. Did I hear a sample? So everybody agrees this is a population. What makes the population? The census. Now we talked about the idea that a census isn't really possible. In that sense, they're not actually getting to everybody, but it's the best we can ever get. So a census is an attempt to measure a population parameter. So that's what they're talking about. How about part B? What's B? What makes it a sample?
They were trying to get all of them.
Correct. It's a random sample. It's a small subset, relatively small subset. So this is a sample that we're dealing with here. So it's a sample proportion. Okay. How about C? Everybody say sample? Okay. These would make reasonable kinds of questions for a midterm. Is giving you situations and asking you to identify whether something is a sample or a population value. Okay. Identifying the difference between samples and populations. How about 10.3? What is the research question of interest? What do we say?
How strict are your parents?
How strict are your parents? Can we get more specific? Okay. How strict are your parents relative to other parents? You can get just a little bit more precise than that. The last sentence in the statement is getting a little bit more specific than that yet.
Your friends' parents?
It says more strict was selected by 171 of the respondents. They didn't tell you how much were in each of the other categories, just that one category.
Is it what percentage of teens think that their parents are more strict than their friends' parents?
I would go along with that. The question is what is the proportion of teens who feel that their parents are more strict than their friends' parents? Okay, so that's getting right down to the particular sense that we're looking at. And you'll see this a lot of times, that you'll see a question that has multiple possible answers to it. And you have to boil it down to something where I can get at one number from the population. So in this case, that one number would be what? And I think that's the answer to part B. What is the population parameter of interest? So what is the population parameter of interest? 171? If we know an actual number for it, it's probably not a population parameter. All teenagers is the population. That would be the sample of teenagers that we're working with.
Would it be the percent of teenagers who think their parents are more strict than their friends?
Yeah. Percent of American teenagers who think that their parents are more strict than their friends' parents. So that is the proportion in the population that we are interested in. Okay, the symbol for that would be P. And we'll get more worried about symbols later on, but for right now, I'm looking for that wording, looking for that identification of that one characteristic of this population that is our parameter of interest. Okay? Now see, up until that point, up until we get that specific, it's very difficult to get specific enough about stuff to be able to actually collect data and calculate values. So we need to get very specific about what we're doing. The projects that you're working on, coming up with the response and explanatory variables, having you come up with the tables for them. You come up with a research question, you come up with the tables, you come up with a survey, and from there for the SPSS file. Each of those are steps to get you more and more specific so we get down to the point where we're measuring something that we'll actually be able to do some kind of inference on. Okay? The same is true as this. Okay. What percentage of the sample responded with more strict? That should be fairly easy. What's the percentage? Does it work out to 39%?
39.6.
39.6? I would have been surprised if it's quite even. Where do we get the number? It's 171 divided by 439. If I'm asking you a question like this, I'm less concerned about the 39 point something percent, and I'm more concerned about 171 over 439, knowing that you got the right numbers from the right places. The probability when you get, well, maybe not on something this simple, but with me it's still fairly high probability, that when I punch that into the calculator it'll come out wrong. So if you can get it set up so I know that you got the right numbers in the right places, that's the main thing I'm looking for. I'm not quite as worried about whether you can punch the numbers into your calculator correctly. I figure if I can't do it correctly myself, I probably shouldn't insist that you guys do it that way. But I'm really going to be insistent that the numbers be set up correctly. And in that respect, if you give me just the 39 point something percent, there's a chance I may actually mark points down for that if I can't tell where you got it from, and it looks to me like you just took a wild guess, or if you just got lucky at the number. If you show me that you got the number by taking 171 divided by 439, multiply that by 100, I come up with our percentage, then I know you got it from the right place, so I know that we're all set. And it's really that first part that I'm worried about. Okay? D, draw a figure like figure 10.1 on page 402 to illustrate this situation. That's a figure very similar to what we've got up here, isn't it? You illustrate the situation. We could label this P as